H.P. Lovecraft's Herbert West Reanimator, and this is Part 4, The Scream of the Dead. I had a lot of issues with Part 3, so in that sense, Part 4 has to be better, because that was a pretty low depth that we got to in Part 3. And Part 4 has some interesting parts that it talks about the scream of the dead, and he says, the scream of a dead man gave to me that acute and added horror, and the idea that a dead man would scream is very intriguing. It's not a normal thing that happens most of the time. It gives you that sense of a zombie and they're playing with dead bodies and all these things that back at the time that Lovecraft was writing were not normal fodder. Nowadays we have oodles of zombies everywhere, and it's just something we all are comfortable with, I suppose I will say. So we're now 7 years past them graduating from college. So the previous one was right when they graduated from college. Now they've been at this for 7 years. They've been experimenting on dead bodies and putting elixirs into them and trying to get them to wake up. And it says scores of rabbits and guinea pigs had been killed and treated, and they never quite worked out. They know at this point that it has to be freshly dead. They know that they can't just put these things into a live body, that it doesn't have much effect. So it can't be alive and it can't be distantly dead. It has to be just past the cusp of having died, and then they're going to try to reanimate it to see what happens. And then we get the usual going back in time to be able to recap everything for the people who hadn't read the previous ones recently, and part of the whole releasing these in sequence in a magazine issue. So we talk back about the creature that went behind asylum bars, the loathsome African monstrosity, which is the one that I had all the issues with, and still they can't get bodies fresh enough. And they are still working on this process. So the main character, who is nameless, went out to visit his parents in Illinois, and when he comes back, he finds that his friend West is super happy, because West now thinks that, all right, we don't have to work on them right when they die. We can put a chemical into them right when they die, and then they will stay in a state of suspended animation until we can get around to doing our research on them. And the chemicals that I have that will suspend them will be able to hold them in a state long enough that we can do our work when we are able to. So they are super happy about this idea. So he says that I have got a specimen to work on that we can try this out on. It was a stranger who was going to the Bolton Mills, and then he came over and stopped, and then he just happened to drop dead. And just since he was dead anyway, I decided that I was going to put my chemicals into him and preserve him until you got back, and then we can work on him, which is, delightful. Nice that a stranger just happened to drop dead in the house right when he had all the chemicals ready to preserve him. So, the main character doesn't find this suspicious at all, because that's the way of this story. And they go down into the laboratory, and they look at the thing and try to make sure that he is actually dead, and they put some drugs into the wrist to start to wake him up. Or not to wake him up, but to counteract the embalming solution so that he is in a state again of just deadness, so they can then put the chemicals into him, which will hopefully wake him up. So they do that, and to their great relief, the body starts to get a little color into it, starts to move a little bit, and then it starts to actually say things, and the main character says, "Where have you been?" wanting to know what the location that it goes to after death is, and the corpse says something like "only now," and they're not sure what that means, and then all of a sudden the corpse starts being frantic and says, "Help, keep off, you cursed little towhead fiend, keep that damn needle away from me." And the main character decides that this is what he must have said in his last moments of life, implying that, of course, the main character didn't just happen to have him die in the house, but instead the main character killed him in the house so that he could then embalm him with this special chemical to hold him, to then reanimate him after that. So I am sure to people of the time who haven't been reading oodles of zombie stories that this was a horrifying idea, that someone would kill a person and then try to bring them back to life and see if it worked. But this, like several of other of Lovecraft's stories, was so strongly telegraphed that we knew it was coming. It wasn't a shock, and it was just a natural sequence of events, and it wasn't really that horrifying at all. We already know this guy has all sorts of ethical issues. He is happily working on bodies, torturing bodies, And the idea that he would kill a body to make sure he could get to it quickly was just a matter of time. I suppose one could say that it didn't talk about, oh, he's got 18 children and the loving wife and all that other stuff to make it even worse. But clearly he is just killing a random person just to be able to experiment on him, and his only concern was that the person wasn't known in town so that they wouldn't be missed that easily. So it's certainly better than part 3. I found it fairly bland compared with some of Lovecraft's other stories, and didn't find it to be, I don't know, that exciting, that different, that revelatory. It was pretty much, we knew what was coming. So let me know what your thoughts are on this. Maybe I'm just not connecting with the story at all. Maybe I was just so disappointed by the racist content in part 3 that I just can't bring myself to really connect with these characters going forward. So all of those things could possibly be true, but I will keep going because I'm sure there were other better stories in the future and I would like to get to them. All right, let me know your thoughts.